Hello, everyone, and welcome to our webinar titled Driving District-Wide Score Gains, Wylie Independent School District's College Readiness Journey with MasteryPrep and Sirius Education. My name is Jordan Friedman. I'm a director here at MasteryPrep, and we're excited to have you all join us and to get started. For those of you who aren't familiar with MasteryPrep, we're a company offering a standards-aligned system to prepare students for high-stakes assessments, STAR, ACT, SAT, TSIA2, and beyond. Today, we have two special guests with us from Wylie, Stephen Davis, Executive Director of Secondary Education, and LeTrecia Hale, Advanced Academics Learning Specialist. Throughout the webinar, if you have any questions for Stephen, LeTrecia, or myself, please be sure to put those into the chat, and we'll be spending a few minutes at the end of the webinar answering your questions. And now I'm excited to pass it off to Stephen and LeTrecia, who will introduce themselves, and we'll get started with the webinar.
So good afternoon, everyone. My name is Stephen Davis. I'm Executive Director of Secondary Curriculum. This is my 9th year in this position in Wylie. There are two Wylie ISDs, by the way. Hi, Abilene Wylie. If you're out there somewhere, we are known as Region 10 Wylie. We're outside of Dallas. This is my 9th year in the gig, and I appreciate y'all being with us today because I know the time is valuable. So thanks for hopping on.
Hi, and my name is LeTrecia Hale. This is my 6th year as the Advanced Academics Learning Specialist in Wylie ID. So we're happy to be here with you today and look forward to it.
Great. Thank you both. Thank you both for those great introductions. Now I was hoping we could get started by just putting everything into context for the people that joined us today. So can you tell me a little bit about, who is Wylie Independent School District at a glance?
So our district is the typical growing suburban district. If you start at Dallas, kind of the next big suburb is Garland, and we're kind of one stop over. So the district has grown from, I've been here 9 years, so from about 12,500 kids to now we're up in the 19,000s, pushing 20,000 with more growth coming. So if you're in one of these suburban areas, you kind of know what it looks like. Lots of new homes and all that. The challenge, I don't say the challenge, but one thing we're fairly proud of is as we've grown and added campuses and added kids and teachers and all of this, we've stayed pretty tight on the curriculum side. We have a good balance of tightly held and loosely held. And so as we've grown, the system has stayed pretty stable, and that's what's allowed us to continue to overall get some good scores. Our little brag there at the top, as far as the only district with over 10,000 kids that had all campus get A's and all the district get an A. That's the second time we've done that, so I was particularly proud of that. As secondary, I'm over our 9 intermediate, junior high, and high school campuses. We have 3 high schools, 2 traditionals, 1 non-traditional. And we'll talk a little bit about how MasteryPrep has played a part in really all 3 of those. I'm really particularly proud of our non-traditional high school. Last go around on ratings, they got a 96 overall, and they're kind of a shining star amongst, they don't always get the pub that all the other schools get, but they've done a really good job, and so I'm really like to highlight them. It's pretty impressive to get a 96 at an AEA campus. So that's pretty much it in a nutshell.
Great. Thank you for that introduction. And tell me about what problem or challenge you were trying to solve by partnering with MasteryPrep as well as Sirius Education. When did your partnerships with these organizations begin, and what drove you to partner with MasteryPrep and Sirius?
So I'll start with MasteryPrep. My former life, I was a high school associate principal, and test prep and all the usual stuff was a part of what I did. I did everything on teaching and learning for a typical 5A high school. And when I got to Wylie, I saw that it was kind of the same thing. Whatever we were doing, we were kind of just doing on our own, like we were writing our own warm-ups, or we were, doing our own test prep. And we just weren't getting really the yield that I thought we needed for the effort that we were putting into it. Tricia was doing hard work. Some high school folks were doing hard work. High school administrators were doing hard work. But I don't know if we were moving the needle on the data as much as I wanted to. We had implemented SAT school day. So we had our first kind of step was just getting to 100% testers. We have a handful of course special needs kids or who don't take pencil and paper tests, so they don't really count. But moving to SAT school day was a big deal. And then we give PSAT 8-9 and then PSAT NMSQT to our 10th and 11th graders. And we're a TSI testing site. So we had lots of testing going on. We were trying to align curriculum, but I just don't know if we were getting the yield for how much work we were putting into it. So actually MasteryPrep reached out to me and it was kind of perfect timing. It was actually, I always tell the story, it was right in the middle of COVID. And the only reason I remember, there was nobody else in the office. MasteryPrep came in and met with me that summer of 2020. And I said, well, let's see what we can do. And the high schools were on board pretty quickly. And we moved to, it was kind of that switch to somebody else who had simply more expertise with TSI, SAT, PSAT, all of those things than we did. And so that's when we did start to move the needle. If y'all been around for a little bit, you also remember this about the time that CCMR, bonus money came out. And we not only had access to new money, but we had to put a certain amount back into college career military readiness. So I was able to get some money from the first year from the CCMR outcomes bonus money, and then show through a return on investment that that money was coming back to me in the form of outcomes bonus money, increasing over the years. A couple of years ago, we got to over $1 million on outcomes bonus money, and so I always send the CFO, hey, here's your return on investment this year. So that made getting the money easier. The alignment was the key, to make sure we were practicing how we were going to play on PSAT and SAT day was key. Getting TSI scores up was key. I will say it was Sirius. We kind of had been using a little bit longer than 2020. And we had always got really, I supervised a team of learning specialists, and they had always told me that the Sirius resources were very aligned. And then Sirius was really the first one that had a lot of the TEI items once we switched to STAR 2.0. And so we were trying to build our own assessment with TEIs, but we also had a bank right there when we got the Sirius. We used to get the online plus the digital plus the book, so we could get practice on the TEI, but we could also get some practice with just sometimes you need to get pencil and paper. So we for years have been buying both at the secondary level, so we can get the TEI practice, and so we can get practice just on sometimes you gotta have the physical books so you can do annotations and things like that. So yeah, people really believed in the alignment, and that's probably what made the biggest sell to the campuses. And then, to be honest with you, when we started the MasteryPrep boot camps, they just knew it was better than what we had been doing on our own. So that created belief pretty quickly. Actually, the kids are the ones who told us, like, yeah, you're doing the right thing, because they're the ones that said, okay, I feel better about my tests now. So we really listened to them a lot too. We let our free and reduced kids go to boot camps for free. And I was worried they were going to skip because they hadn't put any money towards the boot camp, and they always show up. So showing up on a Saturday at 8 o'clock.
Great. Thank you for adding that context. And I think that's a good segue into the next piece of our conversation, which was your actual implementation of boot camps, which, like you said, started in 2020 with boot camps for the SAT and TSI too. So tell me what this looked like in practice at the time, and how your implementation of boot camps continued to evolve.
Okay, so hi. I handle a lot of the implementation and planning when it comes to boot camps. So as you said, we started out with SAT and then started trying to figure out a plan with TSI as well. For our SAT boot camps, we had those open in the spring and we set those up to be near our SAT school day, giving our kids opportunities because that's also around the same time as spring break. So trying to find good times for students to be able to come in on a Saturday. And so we would have multiple offerings on both campuses. And as Dr. Davis spoke to, we made sure that all of those offerings were free to our free and reduced students. And reasonably cost for our students showing up on Saturdays. And so that's how we started in the spring with SAT. And then in about April, we started identifying students with TSI and students who had not made college readiness their senior year. And so we would have more targeted boot camps to help us find students who were close based off of their SAT school day testing or previous TSI testing for dual credit. And it allowed us, and working with the partnership with our counselors, contacting those students, explaining the importance of college readiness, how this is going to benefit them, whether they think they're going to college or not, all the counseling aspects behind that. And so our TSI boot camps are done during the school day. And then as time has progressed, we continue to add more boot camps. We also had one offering of SAT boot camp. We are primarily SAT, but we also noticed a need for ACT students, and our highest administration is in the summer. So we do an offering at the end of May, early June, to allow our students to also find success with those same strategies, but tailored towards ACT. That one also was a Saturday offering. And then we have kind of customized and worked forward with MasteryPrep with PSAT boot camps with y'all's new offering with that. And so that opened the doors a little earlier for our students. And we start those in the fall with our PSAT administration with offerings up for our 10th and 11th grade students.
Yeah, and I want to say something about Hale is the boot camp queen. Like she does it all. But I'll say something we did that was smart when we started the boot camps for TSI is we started with the halvesies. So we'll have lots of kids, I call them halvesies. They have met their college readiness indicator for English, but not for math. And we picked the halvesies who were within 5 questions of college readiness on their SAT school day. So we started with the halvesies who were within striking distance on the math. We targeted them. The counselors brought them in and handed them a letter with my name on it that said, this is what college readiness means, and explained to them remedial classes if they show up at a college and university and they haven't met TSI. And we kept it small. So we would pull like 20, we'd do a boot camp just for math. We test them the next day. And then they get the score report when the test is over that says I'm college ready. And it was that was so powerful because they knew when we explained to them that you were close and that, hey, if you give me a good solid boot camp and then we'll TSI test you tomorrow, you can be college ready by the end of the week. Like it was just real powerful because they didn't fully understand what all that meant. And by focusing on the halvesies, we also thought we were doing it right because we also thought there were some kids, if they were really far away, then a remedial class in college might be best for them. So that was a good strategy. Prior to that, we had been doing a lot of mass testing for any kid who hadn't met a CCMR indicator. And so we were testing kids who were way far away, and we weren't giving them any remediation beforehand. So by starting with the halvesies who were within striking distance, and those are the reports that I would send to the CFO, because I think one day we figured out on the TSI boot camps, we made $34,000 in CCMR outcomes bonus money. Now that's not why we were doing it, but I'm smart enough to tell the CFO, that 60 grand that you invested, well, I got half of it back just this week. So then when I need to go ask for more boot camps, I don't get as much resistance there. We charge $50 for our non-free and reduced kids, and we about break even on boot camps when it's all said and done. We may lose a little bit, but letting the free and reduced kids go for free is totally worth it. It's good.
And another benefit that kind of also comes to mind is usually since our boot camps are on Saturday, we have teachers who help with the boot camps, who are intrinsically motivated to be there to also learn and be refreshed of strategies that they can use in their classroom. So it's kind of that continuing PD education for those teachers as well. And then speaking to that confidence that the students have, sometimes our students that had been tested multiple times before were feeling kind of hopeless. And so being able to be a part of this boot camp and then being tested and seeing that, yes, I can do this was very wonderful. And just being, I got to be on the boots on the ground for those boot camps. And so it was a lot of fun to see those kids celebrate and leave with smiles and excitement afterwards. So it was totally worth it.
Great. That's great to hear. And I just wanted to circle back to something I think Stephen was kind of alluding to in his response as well. And, one element of our boot camps that we really pride ourselves on here at Mastery Prep is the customization and the flexibility. So can you tell me a little bit about how, Wylie adapted Mastery Prep boot camps to meet the district's unique needs?
Yes, we have used Mastery Prep in a multitude of ways. I think our first real experience with adjusting our boot camps were when we were targeting our TSI instruction. A lot of the times we would have a huge load of students who were halfway CCMR ready. They needed that math readiness, and the campus is like, I have these kids that need to be ready. But can we do something different? And so sometimes we would just do a math boot camp in the morning, and instead of a second RL, doing the RLA, we would do math in the afternoon. And that way we could get as many students exposed to the strategies of what they needed. And so campus request help us decide how we needed to adjust those. And Mastery Prep has always been wonderful and willing to help us with those adjustments. School days can be complicated because there's bell schedules, there's early release seniors who have jobs, there are students who come late, and Mastery Prep has always been really flexible with what is our start and end times going to look like and meeting the needs of the campus. Another way that we have made adjustments and had some targeted readiness is with the PSAT boot camps. This past week, we just finished up 2 of what we refer to as our high achiever boot camps. Before Mastery Prep, we were doing some homegrown attempts during lunches after school. But if you know anything about high achieving kids, they're also very busy. They are in everything, they're in all the clubs. And so there was a lot of conflict when it came to time and availability. And here in Texas, it is also Bandtober. So band events take up a lot of time. And so with our high achieving students, we were able to schedule boot camps during the school day. And we did half-day sessions for the PSAT boot camp. And then the instructors were able to ingest the types of questions that our students encounter based off of the strengths of the group. And so we could send in score ranges for math and RLA and communicate that with the instructor. And the instructors would go in then and customize and do some checks, because of course, just because we're high achieving doesn't mean that we don't have gaps. Still handle the strategies, but also push them on questions that make them a little bit more uncomfortable and challenge them a bit more. And the students like the opportunity to do the tougher questions. And these are also students that in our district that have already mastered PSAT and are competing for national merit. So it's a completely different group of kids. And so we always appreciate that customization that was available.
Great.
Yeah,
Glad to.
and y'all, if you're in my position in your district or something around this, you talk to lots of vendors and they'll say, this is what we have. The reason that I appreciate Mastery Prep and like presenting with them to say it's worked for us is all the conversations I've had over the year when I've called them and said, I need a PSAT boot camp, but this is for national merit kids. I need an algebra boot camp, but I have 30 kids, so I'm just trying to get them to pass the test, and they've taken it 3 times already. I called and said I need a U.S. history boot camp. I've got 60 kids who are identified as meets today, and I'm trying to get them to masters. I need your 6-hour to be a 3-hour because I'm gonna do a morning group and an afternoon group. I want to get double the kids in there, but my room will only fit 25 kids. Every time I go to them and say, this is what I need, they say, we'll find a way to get it done. And if you deal with as many vendors as you know that we do, if you're in our position, that's just not typical. They'll typically say, well, this is what we have. And I mean, that's generally the response I get. And honestly, MasteryPrep is the complete opposite. When I say this, we've just, I don't say we customize them to death, and I'm sure they probably roll their eyes, but I'm like, okay, like, you really need one just for meets kids? Yes, I really just need one for meets kids. I'm trying to get the masters. But the algebra ones for the do not meets kids, yes, those are the do not meets kids. I'm trying to get approaches, and they say, we'll get it done for you, no big deal. And Hale does a lot of that, but I really appreciate they don't just say, well, no, this is what we have, take it or leave it. So that's one of the reasons I appreciate them, and I like the chance to just present with them and say that, is because they really, more than any of my vendors, they're a partner who says, show me what you need and we'll try and find a way to get it done.
Great. Thank you for that, Stephen, and glad to hear it. Another one of our core product offering as far as live services go is our teacher-facing professional development as well, so that teachers across school districts can weave test-taking strategies into daily instruction. Can you tell me a little bit about what this has looked like in terms of implementing professional development at Wylie ISD over the past few years?
So it was really kind of the same song, second verse. We were doing some of our own things, and I have learning specialists and I have content specialists, including Tricia, who are in charge of keeping our teachers up to date on test strategies and knowing what's on the test and knowing the time limits for the test. But when we switched to MasteryPrep for it, we just got to that next level. And the kids were more confident going into the test. Now, we mainly focused on our junior level teachers and PSAT and SAT, knowing what's on those tests and knowing how to teach that content, knowing how it's going to be tested so we could use backwards design. In general, knowing what those sections look like, bell ringers that we could implement during the year, especially February, January and February leading up to March SAT school day. MasteryPrep, when we gave it to them, it got more it got better. It got better more quickly. Sorry, I don't know how to mute my phone, so y'all hear my phone ringing now. But moving from homegrown to MasteryPrep doing it just kind of got us to that next level. And then to be honest with you, it lessened the bandwidth on my content specialists, so they could just sit in the training and learn alongside and now figure out how to implement that into the curriculum a little bit more than we were doing.
Great.
And I think from the perspective of a teacher as well, I was previously a social studies teacher, 11th grade social studies teacher. And so my experience with PSAT and SAT is there's this test that I give to students. And I didn't see the connections originally, and having those professional development opportunities through MasteryPrep to help as a teacher, knowing what strategies I can use to help strengthen my students, even though I wasn't a math or RLA classroom, looking at it from the perspective of how to build and help those students be successful. And giving a reason and a why of everything that we're doing. And so it kind of helps shift that mindset with teachers of what that PSAT test is for and how it's not just another thing.
Great. Thank you for adding that. It's always good to hear from the perspective of a teacher as well in this case. And for those of you who aren't aware, Sirius Education is now part of the MasteryPrep family, and Wylie Independent School District has also partnered with Sirius Education for several years for Star Prep, and Sirius offers targeted resources for grades 3 to 12. So Stephen or LeTrecia, can you tell me again, how, Sirius was implemented at Wylie Independent School District over the past several years and what this has looked like in practice.
So it just spread through my content specialists. I mean, good news travels fast with beg, borrow, and steal, and they had success using, way back when it was just the workbooks, and then there was the online version plus the workbooks. And because it was successful, the learning specialists talked to the other content specialists, talked to the other content specialists, and it spread. And like I said, they were pretty much the first ones that we knew of that were really in good shape with the TEIs. They were even ahead of our test provider, our test bank at the time. And this is when I want to brag on Achieve, my non-traditional high school. They were probably the pioneers at using this to diagnose by name and by need. So they use the Sirius for English 1 and English 2, heavy. It's their lifeblood for getting the kids ready for that December EOC. And their December EOC scores are just as good as a traditional high school's May EOC scores, because they really diagnose using Sirius what the kids need to work on and work on Sirius to get ready for that December EOC. And some of those kids are first-time testers, so they've only had a semester in the course. But really, Achieve is kind of my exemplar for this, and that's one of the reasons as a AEA campus, they've been able to get the results they get. But the teachers are really bought in, and if I ever, they're pretty much, as soon as we enroll, in August, and they know how many kids they got in their class, they're asking me to get the quote and get it purchased. So I really have to brag on that for them. That's kind of their secret sauce to EOC remediation for at-risk kids who are going to have to take that test in December. And y'all know how tough that English test is. And so it's the alignment is probably the main thing. But it's very good at getting the kids by name by need, and then getting extra practice where they show that they're weak.
Great, thank you for that, Stephen. And I want to move on to some of the outcomes that Wylie ISD has, had as a result or following these partnerships with MasteryPrep and Sirius Education. And I like to look at outcomes from the perspective of, quantitative measurable outcomes as well as qualitative outcomes. So let's start with quantitative outcomes. What, measurable gains or outcomes have you seen in the past several years after launching these partnerships?
Well, we're pretty happy about all those, to be honest with you. One thing I'm particularly proud of is SAT school day. Y'all know, with the redesign, the SAT got really, really tough. I think this is year 3 of the new test, if I recall. But when they went to 2-stage adaptive, SAT got a lot tougher. And we weren't always, when they went to 2-stage adaptive, it wasn't always easy to get down to where the kids were struggling. So we kind of had to adjust our plan. But they have really picked it up on SAT school day. And to be honest with you, emphasizing to the junior level teachers that is their test has made a big difference as well. So we tell them that's their test. We give them for the training and support, but they're expected to make gains from PSAT to SAT, and they have accountability for their scores as well. And just like our typical STAR teachers, they feel the accountability. Well, so do our junior level teachers. Also particularly proud of the post-secondary readiness distinction, just because we're at the district level, Tricia and I, and it's the only one we're eligible for. So we've got it 4 years in a row. It's the only one we have to shoot for. And then really just, our next level has been meet masters. For years we've said we're just not at approaches anymore. We went through those kind of years, and now it's all about meets and above, especially in our on-level classes, not our advanced classes. I've had to have the teachers realize that those advanced kids are, because of our data, they're sitting in on-level classes today. So you're going to have to try and get meets and masters for kids sitting in regs as opposed to sitting in advanced. And that means you're going to have to raise your level of instruction. So yeah, I'm kind of proud of all those. But just in general, the level of rigor has raised, and that's thanks to Tricia and the work she does as our advanced academic specialist. But you know, it was more challenging to raise the level of rigor for already kids who are already pretty high, what we would say at the 60th percentile and above, versus remediation. We've gotten really good at remediation to approaches, and it was harder to move the needle on meets to masters, but y'all know that. That's probably what you're dealing with in your district as well.
Great. Thank you, Stephen. And I also wanted to talk a little bit, like I alluded to before, some of the, qualitative outcomes, things like student mindset shifts and, culture shifts and different ways of thinking about, test prep. So can you tell me a little bit about, what are some of the qualitative outcomes you've experienced in the past several years related to test prep at Wylie?
Well, I think our secret sauce has been, as I said, as we've grown from the curriculum side, as far as resources, what to teach and alignment, we've stayed very tight. You know, that culture was in place before I got here 9 years ago. And there's a general expectation that what to teach and when you teach it is a non-negotiable. Alignment is key. Now the art of how you teach it and those engaging lessons, teachers, that is all them, and we let them have that freedom, but we're very aligned with resources and scope and sequence and alignment. So I think that's one of the reasons we've been successful as we've continued to grow. Just that what most people call tightly held, loosely held, all those things as far as alignment were tightly held. It's also just looking through a lens of, regardless of the eco-dis on your campus, you need, the expectation is you get results. So our motto is every campus, every classroom, every child, every day in the curriculum instruction department. So all that variation in the system that you can sometimes have with, as your eco-dis varies, we really do everything to try and eliminate that, to ensure that you're going to get a high quality curriculum and high quality teacher in your classroom, regardless of zip code or feeder pattern, you would say. And then it was funny because it's really, somebody asked us for another presentation, well, what would you consider the top thing that has helped you raise scores in the last couple of years? And I said, well, there's just not one. It's a lot of little things, little bricks in the wall on top of each other. I don't know that I can really point to one thing. Our PLC culture is great. Our alignment's great. We build relationships. We have a great character ed program. But MasteryPrep's a part of it. Sirius is a part of it. Having good partners is a part of it. Y'all know this is what y'all do every day. So it's just nice to have a good partner who's in the foxhole with you. But really alignment was key for me, and that's what I'm going to continue to bang the drum on. And then telling teachers, you can teach it however you want. Go do that magic you do. But alignment is key. I don't know, Hale, what else secret sauce do we have down in the C&I hallway?
Well, and I think having the ability to have that alignment and then having a partnership that also communicates that same alignment and backs up, because it's kind of like when mom and dad tells you to do something, if you have somebody else who tells you, sometimes people will listen more. I feel like sometimes, we communicate these things, but having the, professional development with teachers to hear it from other professionals that, yes, this is what you're doing in your classroom, and seeing that really helps. And I think the students get the same messages through all of our boot camps and strategies. And so they're hearing it multiple ways and multiple different ways for our students. And I think the ability to provide it for all of our students and not allowing money or resources to be a roadblock. This year we have one campus that is doing a school day offering of something that we normally do on a Saturday to make sure to catch those kids who can't come on a Saturday. And so that's just kind of the campus culture as well, of making sure that everything is available and equitable to all of our students.
Great.
I'll say another thing, Tricia, because I see that lessons learned, and if I were in y'all's shoes watching, devoting my time to this webinar, what would I want to know? The other thing I would want to know is our biggest mistake in the beginning was we took on all the work. when we started, Trisha and I did all the work and we made it super easy because this was right in the middle of COVID. People were just very on edge. And we finally landed in a better place where we now do it with the campuses instead of for the campuses. When we started rolling this out, because we knew it would be better than what we were doing, we just did it all as a curriculum instruction department. We eventually had to switch to, we need you to do more recruiting of the kids, you to do more advertising. Principals, we need you putting it in your newsletters. We need you talking about it on the announcements. That built the culture on the campuses instead of, we were well intended, but we did too much of the work in the beginning. If I could do the whole thing over again, as soon as I got done with my step, I would have brought in my lead counselors and associate principals and crafted the plan together. Because that's now how we do it. Now it's more of a partnership. But when we started in the beginning, we didn't want to put more work on the campus, and it worked, except it got even better when we said, okay, now there's joint responsibility, and you know exactly how many spots you have for a boot camp and how to fill those up. And counselors, you know that it's for free and call those kids in. And it reached next level when we started involving the campus more with the advertising, decision-making, and letters and all that stuff. When we got the lead counselors involved more, the associate principals involved more, and the campus principals involved more, we took it to the next level. So if I was going to do it again, I'd do that from the beginning. We were well-intentioned, but it was a mistake. It wasn't a mistake. It just wasn't perfect. Mistakes too much. Just wasn't perfect.
And I think
Great.
it was that perception of this is something we're doing to them, not we're doing with them. And that mentality shifted and we were all on the same goals. And it moved from, you know, I know y'all are coming with the boot camps to when are we going to do these boot camps and what's our strategic plan? And the conversation completely shifted once we made sure that was a partnership.
Yeah. The culture changed.
Great. Yeah, it's really interesting to hear kind of, you know, how the partnerships have evolved for Wylie over the past several years. And I do want to move on to the Q&A portion. Thank you again, Stephen and LeTrecia, for sharing all these insights. We do have a few questions that came in. The first one, how were teachers introduced to professional learning through Mastery Prep? Was this on district-wide days or on specific campuses?
So we went to those junior level PLCs for math and reading, and we said, we know how important this is. This test is important, this PSAT and SAT. So we're going to have a day where you're going to have a sub and we're going to do it, a training off campus. I don't know that I would have done it at a district day because most of our district days are in August and all they want to do is get the room ready. So we really try and just give them the essentials to get the school year started in August because they don't always want to hear, and I don't blame them, but they don't always want to hear this other message. So we do it, you know, about 6 weeks into school and we just get them a sub. And that's how we rolled it out the first time. We said, we think this is really important and valuable. And so we're going to get you a sub and we need you to come to the training. That's just how we did it. I don't know if there's a better way of doing it, but it works pretty well. But I mean, in the beginning, we said, this is important and we need you to go. And they didn't fight it. They were like, yeah, you're right. Like, it's important and we need to go. They felt better when they came back because like, okay, I'm more prepared for my kids now.
Yeah, and I think over the years we've tried multiple things. We've done a CNI day before. We've done after the new year starts, and kind of making the adjustments to what makes sense for our teachers. And I also think it kind of trickled where we started with junior level teachers, but then the conversation started happening about how as 10th grade teachers, how are we supporting our students for PSAT and how all of these things align. And build in. So the conversation definitely got bigger, but we always traditionally make sure that our junior level teachers feel prepared. But it was good information for all of our teachers as well.
Great. Thank you both. And another question that came in, this one's for me. how long before test day do schools typically hold boot camps? As far as I know, boot camps are ideally held within 4 to 6 weeks of test day. But if you drop your email in the chat, I can be sure to follow up with you for more information. And I think that's all the time we have for questions. But thank you again, Stephen and LeTrecia, for your insights. And thank you all for joining the webinar. I'm also going to drop some links in the chat so you can learn more about Mastery Prep's boot camps and other offerings for Texas schools and districts. So let me drop that real quick. We'll also be sharing the webinar recording via email in the next few days for easy access. And in the meantime, feel free to visit our website, MasteryPrep.com, to contact us directly and learn more about our Texas offerings. Like I said, Sirius Education is now part of the Mastery Prep family. Together, we empower Texas educators to build college and career-ready students by delivering rigorous text-based instruction and practice tools for grades 3 to 12. We help districts close learning gaps and prepare every student to improve performance on the STAR, TSIA2, SAT, and ACT. In the meantime, be sure to check out our blog or follow us on LinkedIn for company updates. And that's a wrap. Thank you all for joining us and have a great rest of your day.